Have you ever wondered what happens when temptation plants itself in front of you? In your own home. And you can't resist it even though you know what's wrong. Let me tell you my stories. One that began with loneliness. Before continuing the story, I ask you for a second to give a like to the video. It doesn't bother you at all and it helps me a lot. Let's continue. It was guided by desire, and ended in secrets that I cannot erase. My name is Valeria. I'm 37 years old and I live in Florianopolis, a beautiful city like paradise. With endless beaches and a radiant sun. I am married to Miguel, a 40-year-old man who works as a truck driver, and spends weeks away on business trips. We have no children, and our large house, though comfortable, sometimes feels like a cage that traps me in silence. Miguel is a good husband, generous, attentive and trusts me blindly. But that trust, along with the long empty nights, inadvertently opened a door to a game I never imagined I would play. It all started when my sister, Sophia, asked me for a favor. Her son, Matteo, 23, needed to come to Florianopolis for a month to prepare for a military exam. Miguel, as always, accepted without hesitation, and I had no idea that this decision would turn my life upside down. Matteo arrived late one afternoon, as the sun was setting, tinging the road to the house with gold. I opened the door and was speechless. He was no longer the skinny kid I used to carry in my arms. Now he was a tall, broad-shouldered man with tan skin and deep brown eyes that shone with determination. He wore a tight gray t-shirt that showed off his muscles marked by months of training, and ripped jeans that hugged his long legs. "Hello, Aunt Valeria," he said with a deep voice and a touch of shyness. I walked over, hugged him and let my hand slide down his shoulder longer than necessary, feeling the firmness under the fabric. "Matteo, how have you changed? Looking like that you sure melt hearts out there," I joked, watching him blush a little. "No, Auntie, I'm too busy studying and training to think about girls," he replied, scratching his head with a shy smile. His seriousness and innocence made me laugh. But at the same time, something strange began to grow inside me. A warmth that I couldn't explain, a mixture of curiosity and desire that took me by surprise. The first week passed quietly. Miguel was still at home, and his presence kept everything in order. He liked Matteo. He used to pat him on the shoulder and say, "You are like me when I was young, a hard worker." I would smile. But my eyes began to fixate on Matteo's every move. How he lifted weights in the yard every morning, sweat running down his neck. Or how he sat reading at the dining room table, his big hands flipping through the pages. Then Miguel received an urgent errand. Before he left, he kissed me and said, "I'll be back soon. Take care of yourself and Matteo." The door closed behind him, leaving Matteo and me alone in the vast stillness of the house. I told myself I wouldn't do anything, that it was all in my imagination. But when the kitchen light illuminated his figure that night, I knew I had been wrong. The next day, I decided to try something. I put on a thin, white cotton dress, the kind that clings to the body and highlights the curves that still make me proud at my age. I went into the kitchen, where Matteo was sitting with a huge book and pretended to be busy preparing lunch. "Matteo, can you help me a little?" I asked, my voice as soft as honey. He looked up, and his eyes hesitated as he saw me. From my bare feet on the wooden floor, to the dress that moved with every step. "Sure, Auntie," he said, standing up and coming closer. I handed her a white towel and asked her to dry the dishes while I washed them. We were so close that her shoulder was almost brushing mine, and I could smell the faint sweat mixed with her masculine cologne. I purposely dropped a spoon on the floor. The metallic sound echoed loudly. "Oh, how clumsy." "King," and I bent down slowly to pick it up, letting the dress ride up just enough to show the curve of my thigh under the light fabric. When I stood up, Matteo turned his face quickly, squeezing the towel so hard his knuckles turned white. "Are you all right?" I asked, feigning innocence, with a playful twinkle in my eye. "Yes, it's all right, Aunt," she replied, her voice trembling. I smiled inwardly, knowing I had turned on a miracle even. One hot afternoon, I put on a tight-fitting, dark red, soft, tight-fitting tank top, with short shorts that left my white legs in full view. I went out to the patio, where Matteo was training with weights, and pretended to water the plants. Water from the hose splashed on me, wetting my t-shirt and revealing the lacy bra underneath. "How hot is it, Matteo?" I said, glancing sideways at him. He stopped lifting weights, his hands trembled as he lowered the bar, and his eyes couldn't peel away from me. "Yes, very hot," he muttered, his voice hoarse. I smiled and turned away, aware that he was following me with his eyes. That night I went further. After showering, I left the bathroom door ajar. I stood in front of the mirror drying my hair, wrapped only in a short towel that barely covered my body. "Matteo, would you bring me the t-shirt I left in the bedroom?" I called in a sweet voice. He came in, shirt in hand, and as he handed it to me, his eyes roamed over my figure. From my wet feet to the curves the towel revealed. "Thank you," I whispered, brushing his hand with mine, feeling the warmth of his skin. Matteo blushed, mumbled a "you're welcome," and he ran off. I stood there, my heart pounding, knowing I was walking a dangerous edge. One night, with Miguel still out, I heard Matteo talking on the phone in his room. Curious, I stuck my ear to the wooden door, breathing slowly so as not to make noise. "I'm not kidding, she's gorgeous, I can't take it anymore. Every time she comes near, I feel like I'm going to go crazy," he said, his voice charged with emotion. "But it's wrong, I know, she's my aunt." My heart skipped a beat, so he felt it too. It wasn't just me playing this game. I went back to my room, lay down on my bed, and my mind was spinning non-stop. I wondered what I was doing with my marriage, with my sister, with Matteo. But then, his image, his broad shoulders, his hungry eyes, his trembling voice, appeared, and I knew I didn't want to stop. The first meeting happened on a Saturday night, when Miguel had been home for 2 days. We had organized a small barbecue in the backyard. Miguel was by the grill, laughing with Matteo about how to grill the meat, while I was preparing a salad in the kitchen. I was wearing a short emerald green, fresh silk dress that clung to my body, and an apron tied at the waist to look natural. As I was cutting cucumbers, I felt a tail behind me. I turned around, thinking it was Miguel, but it was Matteo. He was so close I could feel his warm breath on my neck. "Do you need help, Auntie?" he asked, his voice low and slow. She brushed against my waist as she reached for a knife on the counter. I startled, but didn't push it away. "And yes, Miguel, she sees you so close," I whispered, half joking, my heart pounding. Matteo smiled sideways, a mischievous glint in his eyes. "He's busy with the meat, he won't notice." He leaned closer, his lips inches from my ear, and murmured, "You look beautiful. You know that?" Before I could answer, Miguel's voice echoed from the patio. "Valeria, the meat is ready. Bring the plates." Matteo stepped away, leaving me alone in the kitchen with my breath hitching and my cheeks burning. That night, when Miguel fell asleep drunk and snoring, I crept up. I put on a thin robe and walked over to Matteo's gravitation. He was awake, lying on the bed, eyes wide open. "I can't sleep," I said, sitting down next to him, putting a hand on his chest through the thin t-shirt. "I keep thinking about you." Matteo looked at me, his eyes dark with desire. "Aunt Valeria, this isn't right," he whispered, but his hand grabbed mine and pulled me to him. We kissed, an intense, forbidden kiss. His lips burning and his hands squeezing my waist as if he didn't want to let go. The small bed creaked under our weight, and for the next 2 hours we were carried away by passion. When I left his room at midnight, I was back in bed next to Miguel, my heart racing, aware that I had crossed one after Miguel left again. The next morning, when the sound of the truck faded into the dusty road, I opened the door to Matteo's room without knocking. He was sitting on the bed, wearing only boxer shorts. His firm body glistened in the dim light of dawn. "What do you want from me, Auntie?" he asked huskily, not taking his eyes off me. I walked over, a short black silk robe draped over my shoulder, and sat on her lap. "I want you to leave your mark on this house, on me," I replied, sliding my hand from his chest to his abdomen. Matteo said no more. He laid me on the bed, kissing me with all the fury of his youth. The sheets crumpled, and this time it wasn't just a kiss. He laid me on my back, holding my wrists tightly, his lips trailing down from my neck to my chest, leaving red marks on my skin. Our breaths mingled in the silence. And when he went further, I felt every beat of his heart through his burning skin. We didn't stay in the room. That night, he grabbed me in the kitchen. He sat me at the table where I used to prepare breakfast for Miguel, and we continued our game. The dishes rattled as he pushed me against the wall, and the moonlight through the window illuminated his face, half innocent, half wild. We slept cuddled on the kitchen floor, wrapped in the cold of the night, and when I woke up I knew that this house was no longer just mine and Miguel's. The third encounter was one afternoon in the pouring rain, when Matteo came home soaking wet from the gym. I was in the living room, looking out the window. When he came in, his t-shirt clinging to his body and his hair dripping water on the floor. "Aunt Valeria," he called, his voice low and murky. I turned, and before I could say anything, he advanced, pushing me against the window. The rain pounded on the roof, drowning out our gasps. He took off his wet t-shirt, threw it on the floor, and carried me to the couch. This time there was no hesitation in him. His strong hands lifted me up, laid me back on the cushions, and as he leaned over me, I felt the warmth of his body mixed with the coolness of the rainwater. We drifted to the rhythm of the storm, each movement of his like a cut to my sanity. When we finished, he lay beside me, panting, and whispered, "You drive me crazy." I smiled, stroking his hair, but something inside me began to feel empty. Matteo's last days in Florianopolis were a maelstrom of passion. We took advantage of every moment Miguel was away. From the master bedroom, where I let him lie on the bed I share with my husband, to the backyard, where I crept through the bushes under the moonlight, with the sound of the sea in the background. Each time I felt more alive than ever, but I could also feel a crack growing in my soul. I knew this could not last forever. The day Matteo left, I watched him get on the bus from the door. I wore the gray t-shirt from the first day again, but now his eyes had a certainty in them that I didn't see before. "Aunt Valeria, if I pass the exam and work here, can I come back?" she asked, clutching her backpack. I smiled and felt. My door will always be open to Matteo, but next time we will have to be more careful. What felt it? And the bus pulled away, leaving me with a mixture of satisfaction and regret. As I entered the house, my phone lit up with a message from Miguel. "I'll be back tonight, I miss you." I looked around, at the table, the couch, the bed, every corner marked by Matteo, and wondered if Miguel would ever suspect anything. But I shrugged, turned off the cell phone and went into the bathroom, letting the hot water wash away the remnants of guilt.